My name is Delfin Jaranilla. I am the executive chef and partner at Leland Eating and Drinking House in Prospect Heights. So the pork and beans dish was something that Randy and I, Randy is my partner and owner of Leland. It took a while for us to develop this dish because we knew we wanted a pork and bean dish because it's such a happy marriage. It's just a classic pairing. But when we were talking about the concept of this restaurant, we had this grandiose vision of bringing in a whole pig and then breaking it down, and then all those different parts of the pig going into like a sausage or going into a ham, going into a bacon or a porchetta. And we opened in the middle of the pandemic, and it wasn't in the cards for us at the time to do something like that. So then we reached out to Patrick at Heritage, and we started asking questions about the primal cuts of the pig, and that's kind of where the pork rack conversation started. And so this is kind of where we landed on, because we were talking about shanks, we were talking about belly, we were talking about shoulder, and we landed on the pork rack here. It's just like a perfect combination of like fat, lean meat, and if you cook it right, it's so good, And so this is a 10 rib. So what I usually do is I'll clean this. There's this kind of leftover chine here, so I'll clean that off, and then there's like little small, I don't even know what to call it, little nubbin bones here, that also I will clean. So I'm gonna start with that. If you were doing this at home, you definitely want a knife that's kind of bendy like this, and be really careful and always kind of take your time.
What does the flexibility offer?
The flexibility just offers kind of more, especially when you're working with meats, kind of accuracy and because what you want to do is when you're cutting around bones, is you always want to press against whatever bone or cartilage you're trying to eliminate, and as much as possible, it affects your yield. So the flexibility really helps me kind of push against that and have more accurate butchering. This is also great for something like a fish, and it just kind of depends on the chef's preference or style. But I find that cleaning proteins up with a nice flexible knife like this is really great. This is also really great for stock. I'm just gonna kind of throw that in there. But yeah, so now we have these little nubs here. You can keep this on and just kind of remove it later, but for the restaurant, we kind of we want to try to eliminate as much of these. But if they're kind of slicing pieces and they come across something like this, they're not going to know what it is, and it's kind of unpleasant when you're not expecting it, And the ideal cure time for individual chops, at least what I like, which yields the flavor that we like, is about 3 to 4 days. Gets a really nice, kind of dries out a little bit. It takes on the spices that we put on there, and it doesn't shrink too much. It kind of stays, for the most part, its original weight. So the cure that we use is basically an equal parts mix of some really good smoked paprika, and then we take fennel seeds and pulverize them in a spice grinder, and some ground coriander. And that combination is just like really, really great with the pork. It's great with the beans that we marinate for it. we like to use gigante beans because they're just like nice and large, hearty beans that pair really well. So from here, we can start portioning it. At the restaurant, we aim for a 12 ounce chop. Some people definitely get like a 14 ouncer, and it's just like a little VIP piece, you know. But I mean, this, this is like my ideal chop right here. Just really great cap with some really nice marbling on the meat there. The eye is not that big, but I love that. So I think for the most part, Berkshire's is what we get, and I think it's just the most well-rounded, breed. All right, so we talked about the cure on this. The rest of this dish is actually very high acid, and that's definitely on purpose. Because we are using such a great and fatty piece of pork. The acid really helps mellow it out and make it so that you don't feel like shit after eating it. This piece is probably a little too small for us to serve, but this is what I call a chef snack here. So I would just grill that up. So out of the 10 ribs, we got 2, 4, 6, 8. We got 9. So not a bad yield at all. Yeah, so now we're ready to cure, if you will, the pork chops. Not necessarily, definitely. If you want to put the spice mix, salt and pepper, and cook it right away, just as good. The curing process just kind of helps just marry those flavors in with the meat. All right, so I like to just do one side at a time and then flip them over and do the other side. So I just really generously season them with salt and pepper. This is our mix that we were talking about. So it's smoked paprika, ground coriander, and fennel, pulverized fennel seeds. Just a really great kind of trio mix that pairs really well with pork. Our beans themselves are basically like pickled beans. So we take the gigante beans, they come dried, and then we'll cook them, we'll soak them, and we'll cook them until they're nice and tender. And then we'll kind of season that, we'll take it out, we'll put it into a container, we'll leave it in the water, and then we'll salt that entire container, and that really helps kind of season the entire dish. So I'm just kind of using the excess bits to kind of secure that fat cap there. And then we're gonna be ready to sear. So, at the restaurant, these would get labeled with the date on when the cure started, and then they'll sit in our walk-in for, again, like anywhere between 3 to 5 days. You can definitely just do it for like an hour, slap it on the grill, and you get really nice. The char that you get from the paprika really imparts well on a really hot grill. So I'm gonna cook a fresh one, and then one that's circulated, and we can kind of do a little taste test. So the beans, I think I was talking about the beans, but we cook them off. We let it kind of sit in some salt, a dish, but you do want some of that liquid in there. But so what we'll do is we'll kind of semi-mirror the flavors that are in the rub. So there is some of that smoked paprika. There is some house-dried oregano in there, which is really nice. And then I'll grate some fresh garlic in there. And then to finish it off, we'll do fresh cracked pepper and sherry vinegar. So we're gonna start off with the raw, or the uncirculated chop, and then we'll go into the one that we kind of use for circulated. I always like to do fat side down first, kind of render that off a little bit. But the other component to this dish is some pickled rapini, or broccoli rabe. So what we do is we make a really big batch of pickling liquid. This, the vinegar that we use for this is rice wine vinegar. I like to use rice wine vinegar for this because the Rob itself has such good flavor already. This specifically is really great with rice wine vinegar because it's a little more mellow and not so much imposing on flavor. Throw some garlic in there. We'll throw some shallot. I like to do rosemary in this one, and bay leaf, salt and sugar. I like it to be slightly sweet. But we'll bring that up to a boil, and then we'll just pour it over the Rob. And then what we'll do is we'll fish out that broccoli Rob and chop it really small to kind of make a relish. And then we'll mix in some fresh red onions and chili flake for a little heat. All right, that's kind of what you're looking for there. That black it looks like it's something that you don't want, but it's really, really nice charred paprika flavor. All right, so right about now is when I will add this guy because this is already cooked. So we circulate it to, we circulate it at 125 degrees. We kind of let it sit in there for about 3 hours. I just found this kind of the right temperature for us to pull from cold and then sear hard again, a couple minutes on each side. And then by that time, it's warmed through, and it's kind of like this perfect pink, like medium. Same kind of deal. I want to render that fat a little bit. And you can kind of see the color difference from this guy and the fresh chop. Definitely some age happened there. If you're doing this at home, you're probably going to want to finish this chop in the oven in the middle of the cooking process, cutting the bone off. We do serve it at the restaurant with a bone, but if you can kind of see there, it's like very, very raw still. But even this part being like medium, like this part will tend to be a little more rare than that. So I think cutting the bone off or doing something like this where you're kind of manipulating the meat itself. Chefs and cooks, at least that care about what they're doing. It's kind of a combination of everything. Like you're a scientist, you're a chemist, you're a cook, you're a historian. Like it's kind of why I love being a chef, is because you're constantly changing hats. So you can kind of tell the difference from the earlier rib. So the bone is like a little more nice and pink because we had circulated it. And actually this guy is ready to go. That hang out, and we'll just wait for this guy to finish up. Yeah, so I mean, I would suggest for home cooks to have a thermometer. It's just a foolproof way of nailing it every time. But you can kind of see here, a good way to tell how cooked something is too is this white protein that comes out. It's like the albumin, but this kind of means that this part is really well cooked. Now we're gonna let these things rest, and we'll cut into it like 5 minutes or so. Again, with the circulated chop, we don't really have to wait that long, so we can kind of plate this up already. All right, so we are ready to do a little side-by-side kind of taste test here. This guy in front is the restaurant kind of circulated pork chop, and then this is the freshly seasoned or cured pork chop that wasn't circulated first, it was just cooked kind of on the pan there. So what I usually do is kind of put the bone on the plate there. This has been cooked first, and then all we're doing at the restaurant, is warming it up and getting some really good color on it. That's that pork chop over there. And then this is again the fresh one. All right, so as I was slicing this one, these end bits were all rightly cooked, but right in the middle here, like I talked about, these parts are still fairly raw. What we're gonna do is we're gonna return this back to the pan. Keep it tightly, even though we sliced all the way through it, just keep it kind of snug and tight there. and let it kind of finish in the oven. Probably at, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes at a high temperature, and it'll be ready. While we're waiting for that, we can plate this guy up and taste it. All right, so what we do at the restaurant is the beans, the marinated beans go on the bottom of the plate. All right. Just like that. And then, you know, we just kind of arrange the pork right next to the bone there, right on top of the beans, in a very rustic style there. And then the pickled rapini kind of just goes right on top of there. So again, both of these you know, components are really high acid. It's kind of a nice nice pairing with the pork. And then we'll just kind of hit it with some more salt and black pepper. All right, so, you know, we kind of took it out. It's now a good, you know, medium rare medium. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna plate it up. This is the kind of the restaurant move here. Right, and pickled rab, just the rest of this guy. And you do want some of that juice in there because it is really, really tasty with that pork. All right, who's ready to taste this?
I'll come have some.
All right. So again, this is that's the restaurant guy, and that's the fresh one.
Cool, thank you, Chef.
You're welcome.
Get a nice middle piece, nice and rare. Very tender, but a very nice sear. And the pickled rapini cuts the fat perfectly. I feel like, you know, the sear on this one's harder because you have to cook it on the pan longer.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the like crispy dryness that this one had because this one was aging in the walk-in for a few days.
Yeah.
But I don't know, the texture is slightly different, but no, they're just little different experiences.
So thank you so much, you know, to Heritage for having us. Again, my name is Delfin. I'm the chef and partner at Leland Eating and Drinking House in Prospect Heights. You can check us out on our Instagram at lelandbrooklyn.com. Check us out on our website if you want to make a reservation at lelandbrooklyn.com. And you can find us as well on Resy.
Thank you.
Awesome.